Yeah, welcome. As always, I like to take a few minutes to just appreciate that we're together as a Mahayana tribe, as I called it yesterday. I've never used that word before, but in the mandala of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Lama Yeshe, in this sacred virtual Gompa, appreciating to be alive. And not only to be alive, but to come together to explore the teachings on emptiness, particularly the emptiness of the I or the self, the unfindability of the I, of the self. Which is such a amazing discovery we made in our life, that there is a remedy, an antidote against all problems, all struggle, all war. Yeah. It would be really a big job if we would have to solve all the problems one by one. But since they all have just one cause, we just need to unroot that. Just knowing about it, it's amazing. Being curious about it, wanting to find out, wanting to meditate upon it. It's, I mean, that makes our life so rich. Since we have found that, we have never been poor, not one single day. And here we are, still alive, still breathing. There's this famous verse in Arideva's text where he said, just to start to doubt that the things, including yourself, exist in the way they appear is amazing. Just to have that doubt, you know, like kind of, yeah, maybe I'm mistaken all the time. In each moment, I'm somewhat mistaken because I believe appearances. I believe in a objective, separate world out there, which is waiting out there to be discovered, which exists inherently, self-powered, which is just there, you know, like just the body, it's just there, or the chair you sit on, it's just there, findable, waiting to be discovered, waiting, something which exists objectively, independently. And what we are, within the teachings on interdependent arising, what we are particularly curious about is what's the role of projecting, of labeling, of making things what they are for us with concepts, with language, with thought. So just to doubt that, I'm mistaken. Could that be? And how do the things I perceive, including myself, how do they really exist? How can I find out how they really exist? Is it a possibility that I'm sitting in a bubble of projections, believing that they are real? So that's the same as dreaming. Yeah? So in a dream, you create a whole universe. And if you have something scary happening in the dream, then you get scared. About what? About something which seems to be real, because you're also making up an I in the dream. Yeah. So not only you make up the people and the place which within the dream is happening, but you also make up an I, a me. Sometimes it's like kind of fast, almost like in life. So you are kind of identified with the body and you have a sense that you are looking through your eyes. Yeah? Sometimes it's more that you're a bit outside and you look at it as an observer. But it's all of that is happening in the mind of the dreamer. And it's made out of the consciousness of the dreamer. I don't know if you have had lucid dreams in your life. Maybe you had it as a kid, or and there's also the practice of dream yoga in the Tibetan tradition, so you can actually train yourself into lucid dreams. But imagine you have a difficult dream, and then because you, out of luck or because you have trained, you become conscious that this is a dream. So what happens then is, it's not that the dream disappears, everything stays the same. It might become a bit brighter, a bit more alive. So everything stays the same, but what falls away is the fear, the grasping. So last time, yesterday, I finished with like 3 kind of random points. And I want to continue with the last one in our first meditation. So the first was bringing up the topic of fear. Yeah? To be aware and curious about any kind of discomfort or any kind of resistance or any kind of fear which might arise in you when you start to meditate on emptiness, or even when you hear the teachings on emptiness. Even when you hear, there is no free will. There is nobody in control. There's nobody there who makes your decisions. That can hit us when we hear things like that. And that can even lead to, like retrieving or not listening or not reading because you don't want to know about it, that there's nobody in control, that there's no I here making decisions. Decisions happen, obviously, but they are not done by an I, by a me. They happen out of the network of interdependent arising, shaped by karma, by conditioning, by your past. And then once we go a bit deeper into the meditation of the emptiness of the I, the unfindability of the I or the me, we will for sure meet fear. So as a meditator, as a practitioner in this tradition, it's a really good idea to become more curious, tolerant, and kind towards fear. So that, and also expecting it, and almost like seeing it as a good sign. So when you do the emptiness meditation and you feel like you fall down into the groundlessness and there's nothing to hold on, of course, the narrative self will grasp, will resist, will, will fight. Because it sees its end. So when this kind of experience of discomfort or of confusion or kind of the groundlessness is maybe a good word here, sense of groundlessness. So when that appears in our meditation, Lama Zopa says it's a good sign. Don't see that as a sign that you're doing something wrong or that you shouldn't do that meditation. It's a good sign. If the teachings on the emptiness of the I kind of just, go through you without any emotional responses, then probably you're not listening. Not really. So you don't really let it into your heart. There's no discomfort, if there's no struggle, no resistance. To the point where when this is seen, then of course that discomfort doesn't arise anymore. Then you have seen that there's no I. And you know that saying there's no I doesn't mean that you don't exist. It just says you don't exist in that imagined way. How do you exist? Interdependently, particularly merely labeled by mind, as mere thought. That's how you exist. But that isn't how it appears. So the second point was looking a bit at expectation. So what kind of expectation do you have? How does this realization would feel like? Yeah? What do you expect, or what do you want from it? Because we often have either fearful projections, oh, if there's nobody in control, then my life will fall apart. I can't go to the office without the controller, or without the I, which kind of makes me feel dutiful, and I should and I must. So without that I'm just going to sit on the couch and get drunk, or something like that. My life will fall apart if I don't struggle, if I'm not afraid, if I'm not attached to fame and money and possessions, then I'm not going to do anything. But that's a fear for projections. It's not like that. The experience is not like that. It's to the opposite. There's other good reasons to go to work than fear and making money. There's better reasons for doing what you're doing. And then the last one I mentioned yesterday was within meditation practice, and then also in daily life as a mindfulness practice, to become curious about what is here, what is actually here in present moment awareness, and what is in thought, what is in projection, what is in label. So like an extreme example of that would be, you could imagine, and we have experienced that countless times, we are in a most beautiful forest, but we are not in the forest, we are in the office. And we feel like being in the office. So we are completely out of touch with what is real. And we feel that being in the office and thinking about it and trying to find solutions, that is reality. And it makes us feel certain ways. So this curiosity about getting more sensitive or more aware of what is actually in thought and story and memory and language, and what is in the senses of the 5 sense doors. This is really helpful out of different reasons, but here in this explorations, it's helpful because we start to see the power of the conceptual mind. How we look, how we like kind of wear glasses which distort reality through our projections. And then we live in the projections instead of what is. It's really helpful. And this gravity towards sense experience, hearing, feeling, yeah, in the body, tasting, touching, smelling. This is His Holiness in the book. I forgot the title of the book, but something with how you really are, or something like that. Has also a chapter on it. Yeah? How we use attentive stability to stay in touch with a primary meditation object of the 5 senses. Or maybe the 6th sense, which is our capacity to be attentive to a mental image. Yeah. But let's stick with the 5 senses, the normal 5 senses. And this is really an art to find mental factors which support that in us, because somehow we are really attached to thinking. We prioritize thinking to living. We prioritize thoughts about living, thoughts about the past and future towards the magic of feeling, touching, hearing, tasting, seeing, smelling. The cinema of the conceptual mind is so seductive for us, even if it's really a horror movie. We prefer to watch the horror movie of the past to appreciating the aliveness of now. It's quite fascinating to notice that. So how can we shift that? Yeah, how can we, because there's nobody there who can say, okay, don't think, just feel the breath. Yeah, there is no control center. You know, I mean, that's what we are discovering in the meditation on emptiness, that there is no control center. But it seems that we have some kind of, or there is some kind of influence. So there's some kind of freedom. Also, there's nobody there who is free, but there's some kind of freedom to influence what we pay attention to. And what does not work is concentration. That doesn't work in meditation. It's very frustrating and depleting to try to meditate with concentration. So it needs to be something else. And I feel in my own experience, one of the factors which are really helpful here is this kind of awe, appreciation, this kind of wonderment, this kind of curiosity. Which then keeps the beam of your attention, the light of your attention towards that which is real. Because you kind of love it, or you want to drink it, you want to taste it. And then the experience, of course, is when we do this more, we feel better, we feel more alive. Because the present moment usually is quite okay, at least. Often it's actually amazing, the present moment. I mean, to look at anything, to taste anything, to breathe is just so rewarding by itself. But it takes some time for us to find that out, so that our beam of attention goes more and more as a default state towards present moment instead of the movies in our mind. But when we have experience like that in retreat or something, maybe you remember how wonderful it is to eat in a retreat, because usually we don't just eat. We do all kinds of other things in our mind. But then in the container of a retreat, when we have an experience of just eating, then we start to have this experience. Wow, sometimes it's actually enough just to be here, just to be alive, just to taste life as it is. Because there's something magical in smelling, in tasting, in feeling, in hearing. Okay, so that was a long introduction, but okay. Let's still take some time to settle into a posture. Yeah, and really take your time. So it's not like, okay, now the meditation starts. It's really like a settling and a sliding, kind of slowing down and shifting gear. And at one point, maybe your eyes want to close. And it's, I mean, we don't need to blow it up in a kind of special spiritual event. So it's very ordinary. So it's shifting gear, settling. There's a sense of dropping or sliding into your body. Notice your posture. How the chair or the floor carries you. So in these simple instructions now, they are inviting you to make exactly this shift from living in thought and looking at the present moment through thoughts, through a story, into sense experience. And the breath is for many people a good anchor, not for everyone, but So maybe that works for you to. And here we are not looking for concentration, but just maybe 20% of your attention is lightly aware of the breath. I'm breathing, I'm alive. You notice how you receive the breath, how the sensation of breathing are received. And notice where the breath feels nurturing. So that's like a typical question to make you curious about something. So, and that makes your beam of attention go there, nurturing. Where's my breath nurturing? Can I feel that? And it's not about finding it, but it's this looking. You direct the beam of your attention, the light of your attention, to the breath. And not excluding anything else. So there's still the other sensations in your body, and there's the sounds around you. And we can enjoy the attempts of the narrator self to seduce you. So it comes up with scary thoughts or spiritual thoughts or good thoughts. And that's fine. It's going to continue to do that. But we have more and more choice not to bite the hook. Because it's worth to feel alive in present moment awareness. Yes, and sometimes you get hooked, and then there's thoughts upon thoughts upon thoughts. Most of our thoughts are about other thoughts. But as soon as you notice it, you find yourself back here with us. And then let's a bit more consciously step into the temple, the Gompa. And if you have some familiarity with bodhicitta, you bring that into this moment that we are meeting here. Not only for inner peace, but we recognize that outer peace depends on our inner peace. And then we invite our refuge field as our inspiration and protection, blessing, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the Buddha, Lama Zopa, Lama Yeshe. But it's also really open for your own creativity, symbols of awake awareness. And maybe that helps you a bit to love yourself more, because you are infinitely loved. You are infinitely accepted and held forever. So maybe that can help you to feel more comfortable within yourself through self-love. So relax. It's good enough. You are lovable as you are. And you have everything available in this moment to be complete, to be at peace. You don't need anything else than this. There's no further to go. This is what it is, and it's everything. It can't be different than it is. Just relax. And then if there's something coming up in the felt sense of your body, some contraction, some discomfort, tiredness, you just allow, and you just experience it in this space. In this field of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And resting. So whatever you experience, whatever is in the foreground right now is an appearance within consciousness, like a dream. And it's empty, meaning it has no substance. It appears like a rainbow. But if you try to put your finger on it, it goes through. Just like in a rainbow. And returning. Then one possibility we have in meditation is to kind of tune in one of the 5 channels, one of the 5 sense doors, and I would like to invite you to bring your curiosity towards, or your beam of attention towards the soundscape. And take your time. So it's in a graceful, gentle way. It's a kind of a bit of a shifting. One could also bring your the awareness first, like into the space between the two ears. And then just listening. And again, there can be some appreciation or gratefulness, which will be very strong once you start to lose your capacity to listen. But it seems that everyone here still can listen. So bring your attention to the magic of the soundscape. A bit of breathing also, so it's not completely disembodied. And the direction we gravitate towards is to listen without labels, without comparison. There could be also some sounds you would maybe describe as inner sounds, your heartbeat, or some kind of tinnitus, without being tinnitus, but some kind of, unless you have tinnitus, some kind of sound there. And notice that the listening is effortless. So it's not like you need to reach out somehow with your beam of attention. So it's actually, the beam of attention is not a good symbol here. It's more just receiving. Listening is receiving. It comes to you. It's effortless. You just need to rest, and listening happens. If you can have a sense of that effortless receiving. Body is relaxed, shoulders is relaxed, belly is relaxed. There's nothing to do in listening. It happens by itself. So next, see if you can have a taste of what is meant when I say listening with your whole being, with your whole body. Because in truth, you don't know where the listening is. We have some ideas that has something to do with the ears, and that it is localized somewhat in the brain. But is it like that in our immediate experience? Definitely there's listening, the experience of sound. But if you let go of ideas, you can't say where that experience is. Or can you, through direct experience, through introspection, point to a localization where the hearing is? And of course, there's thoughts, and also, if you hear a bird or something, there might be the word bird or what kind of bird it is. So that's fine, but we go towards pure listening without adding. Yeah, also, the body is often there as a mental image. So you just recognize, oh, that's a mental image. That's okay. But what's the experience of listening? A bit of breath also in it. Opening, opening. So now in your direct experience, is there a gap between the experiencer, the listener, and the listening? In your direct experience, without using mental images, without using ideas, is there a separation between inside and outside? And where is that boundary between inside and outside? And in your direct experience is the sensation of breathing and the listening, are they in two different dimensions, in two different places? And if they are in two different places, where's the boundary between sensations of the breathing and the experience of listening? In your direct experience, is there an I, a listener, which is separate from the listening? Or is there just listening? And if there is a listener separate from the listening, where would that be? Where would that listener be? So look around, down to all the sides, all directions, up. Is there a separation between the listener and the listening? Is there a gap? It's common to say, I am listening, you know, as if listening is something we do by an eye. I am listening. But is it like that in your direct experience, that there's an I who is doing something? As if the I and the listening is two different things. Is it like that? Just take care that you still get the magic going of listening, kind of falling in love with listening. I'm alive, I'm listening. So that the seduction of the narrative self has no chance. And then is there a gap between the listener and the listening? I am listening. But where is that gap between the I and the listening? Where is the listener? completely effortless. Broaden the landscape of the listening. Go beyond your room you're in. Listen also behind. 360 degrees listening. Receiving. And in this boundaryless soundscape, is there a listener? Or is there just listening? Listening just happens effortlessly. Sounds just happen. You don't have any control over the sounds. They come by themselves. So you can relax. And then you look for the listener as something separate from the listening. So we are not questioning the listening, the pure listening as a receiving. We are questioning if there's an I listening in the center, maybe even doing the listening. And we question that by looking. And then you take your time to open your eyes. Stay a bit aware how as soon as we open the eyes, there's a tendency to collapse back into the identification with the body. But what we want to do at one point, to do a similar kind of meditation also with the seeing. It's just a bit more difficult. Because as soon as we switch into seeing, we fall into the dualistic split, the dualistic distortion. But we can start to question that. Also, seeing is receiving. Where you could also, with the sound, it's easier to get a sense that listening is an inner experience and not listening out to something out there. And the same kind of taste can start also with seeing. It's also an inner experience. Seeing is an inner experience. Yeah. So maybe there's a comment or a question, maybe also left from yesterday. I'll just check if there's something you would like to ask or share.
Just something came up in my mind, being open, receptive, listening just to all that came in, versus or then adding on a director kind of attention.
Mm.
Who is that the I that's directing attention? You know, if the in life, I mean, if you really want to hear a bird, you direct your attention to that one sound, and you know,
Yeah.
what is that? Is that the I?
That's exactly the question. Is there someone, is there an I, is there control center there within us which can direct the beam of attention? And if we look, then we find no, there's no I directing the beam of attention. The beam of attention goes somewhere else due to different factors. It's like a process. And then we make up the I. Now I am listening to that music. So it's something which happens after. There's experience, the attention goes somewhere else, or a decision is made, or whatever. And then there's a mental process, which in neuropsychology, they show it has some correlation with what they call the default network. It's like this it's this loop of self-referencing. That's why I use sometimes this word selfing. Yeah, it's like a loop. There is a direction of attention. Now I am listening to someone else. So there must be the I, which had some kind of power over my attention, who took attention and then as a beam of attention and directed it somewhere else. But the process of shifting attention, that happens. It doesn't need to be an I there.
Sometimes it's the I, don't you think? I love Beethoven. I'm listening, you know.
Yeah, in your body mind, there is a love for Beethoven, but there's no I there who loves Beethoven. Love to Beethoven appears out of your history, because at one point you know, out of reasons, maybe your father liked Beethoven, that's why you like Beethoven. So there is that preferences, habits, to like things or not like things. They appear, but they appear in this open network of being, which has no core, no center. That's why kind of mindfulness practice and usual normal kind of meditation tends to increase the sense of I, because I'm aware of my feelings, I'm aware of my thoughts, I'm meditating on the breath, I'm doing loving kindness meditation, which is, I mean, these kind of meditations are helpful, but they are traditionally meant as a provisional step. Yes.
We have throughout this meditation, you were directing us to pay attention to this or that. We were making, you were asking us to make decisions about where we directed our attention through the meditation. And at one point referred to being in a forest environment and the confusion of being in the office or the forest environment. You mentioned being with what is really there.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, all of that is in contradiction to other things that you're saying about there is no deciding and there's no really there.
Yeah.
And so how do you, I know part of this is the issue of communication and language and what you know, speaking about what can't be spoken. But on the other hand, there is, you know, there is a sense of being in contact with
yeah.
There is a sense that there is a really there.
Yeah, that's right. And that's
and that we're often not really there.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do you resolve that? How do you speak about that or think about that yourself?
Yeah.
Yourself.
Personally, in my own experience, I'm you could say I'm more like in my own meditative experience, I'm more a Yogacara follower than a Prasankhika Madhyamika. So I would say in my own experience that there is something there. Yeah. But of course, I know Prasankhika Madhyamika would then say, okay, what is there? And then I would say maybe something like consciousness, you know, consciousness is the primary substance, or because it feels like that for me, that there is something there. And yeah, I don't know. Lama Zopa would say also the consciousness or emptiness itself is empty. So it's unfindable. It's just, it exists in mere thought. It's merely labeled. So there is nothing there. It's just label upon label upon label upon label. And deeper we go, less we find.
Like physics.
And when I say like what is really there, like the senses, some Buddhist schools, they would completely agree with that. You know, they would say, I mean, some Buddhist schools, they would say there is a world there made out of atoms. The body is real and findable. And that's really there. But they all agree what is not there is an I. Yeah, the I is completely made up. So maybe there's like different levels of making it up. It's like completely confused. Yeah, you know, completely confused in thoughts and projections and labels. And then a bit more in contact with reality, so the five senses. But then in the Prasankhika Madhyamika school, we go deeper than that. We question also that. There is no there. There's nothing findable there. It's the same in the dream. What is there is, if you look for it, you don't find. But I mean, in a dream, you find the consciousness of the dreamer. That's the primary substance of the dream. That's everything is made out of consciousness within a dream. And there's plenty of mystical and spiritual traditions on this planet who would say the same for this. Even, a lot of quantum mechanic would say that the primary substance, which you find when you dig deep, is awareness, consciousness. Some people think there's a kind of primordial energy, everything is made out of energy or something, but the Prasankhya Madhyamika would look at that and not find it. Yeah.
But the conventional reality, which non-Arjuna tells us also exists, that there's conventional reality. And this is a question that I have. For example, sitting near me, there's a chest that was put together, presumably at some time long in the past, maybe more than 100 years ago. Some Japanese person built this thing. If I pull out the drawers in this chest, I find on one side an inscription, a Japanese character that means the left, shidari. And on the other side, there's migi, the right. And these two marks, which I know mean left and right, are also on the left and on the right in my mind.
Yeah.
100 years later.
Yes.
In this object that somebody has labored over. So in some conventional sense, this stuff really exists. And
yeah, but how? Yeah.
Through time and culture, in entirely different culture in 100 years ago in Japan, a really, really different culture. We have the same designations.
That's right.
With no communication between these peoples, we have the same kinds of designations. So to me, this implies that there is a basis for the labels.
Yeah.
That really is there.
Yeah.
Some sense that makes conventional reality a possibility. If we were all just making all this stuff up from our individual consciousnesses, if that exists, if there are individual consciousnesses, if we were all just making all this stuff up, then, in fact, I remember an anthropology class a long time ago in the 1960s. It was said that certain people who had never seen a photograph wouldn't be able to interpret what a photograph is. But then, you immediately find out that's not true. You show somebody a photograph of a tree, and anybody that looks at it knows they're looking at a tree. So these are the questions I have about this business of merely labeled, and there's nothing findable there. How could conventional reality exist unless there was a basis for the labels?
You have to look for the labels yourself. And how does conventional reality exist? It exists in mere thought. And it could, what easily happens when we hear in mere thought, then we kind of feel, oh, it does not exist, or it doesn't matter. But that's not the case. It exists in mere thoughts. And of course, we don't individually create value, for example, with our individual consciousness. I mean, this is also just a bunch of concepts now, but we do it collectively. Money becomes for what it is because we collectively agree upon it. But this collectively agreeing upon it is conceptually. And it's, so then you could, of course, say, for $100 bill to exist, there needs to be a base. And then there's Buddhist schools who say, yeah, the atoms of the bill, of the 100 bill, that's real. There is a base, a real base for designation. Yeah. And if that's something we can agree upon, or also in our own experience, yeah, then we can stop there. No, that's fine. But Bhasankhika Madhyamika then asks, so let's look at this. Let's look at atoms. What are atoms? So then you find the parts of the atoms, and then you realize, wow, an atom is actually just a label on a bunch of quarks. It's the quarks. That's like the stuff which keeps everything together. Then you look at the quarks, and so on and so on. And that's, I don't know. That's a question then. Is there something, if we dig enough, if we dig deep enough, and for me, it feels that there is something. And that's something I could call consciousness, or, but not individual consciousness. But so I outed myself as a mind-onlyist practitioner. Yeah, Philip.
Stephan, thank you as always. So one of the things I'm thinking about a lot is that all of this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? Because we're limited by our human senses. Even if you think of the collective mind and our speech and sharing brains, we're still limited by what we can see and hear and conceive and imagine and think of. For instance, take your meditation cabin. You have a reality there and an awareness of it. Put a dog into that room, right? And it's a totally different reality. It's all smell. It's the history of smell. The dog can find food with its nose. It can tell if there had been a female dog there, how long ago that dog was there, whether or not that dog is receptive to sense. It's a real awareness, a real reality, totally different from yours or mine. Put a bat into that meditation cabin, and suddenly it's all hearing, right? Echolocation. And you can do that with species after species. It's just one layer of reality on top of another. We see this tiny, if we're fortunate enough to see this tiny sliver of it, that's all we ever will see. Yes. And then physicists talk about dark matter, right? The vast majority of the universe is just unknown to us. So to think, well, we have to deal with the fact that there is no self. That's the tip of the iceberg. We have to deal with the fact that most of reality is unavailable to us.
Yeah. Yes.
And yet it's all here, right now, whatever those words mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this kind of exploration. You just, give a little introduction into that. I mean, whatever kind of shakes a bit my sense that there's an objective reality there, and that I am able to describe it, and there's something we can all agree upon. So this little presentation you gave somehow points to the same direction, like starting to question, like, is it really, I mean, what, it's just questioning appearances. And if it goes into a good direction, then it might lead to a sense of wonderment and into a sense of, wow, I don't know at all what's going on. And maybe a bit of a lightness and a gratitude to that we can ask this question and that we are here and that there is something called, which is like witnessing this, or and sometimes it brings me too much into thinking, but then at one point I kind of give up and feel like, okay, I can read this physics books or this philosophical books forever, and then I just become quiet and I'm just here in wonderment. Nothing to figure out. The kind of the whole thing is like a koan. Yeah? Just and then at one point the conceptual mind gives up and you're just here.
So the Prasangika Madhyamikas are right. You're just being pushed over the edge of the cliff. It is a mystery. That's
Yes.
the best answer you're going to get.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's undescribable, ungraspable. In the end, the Prasangika Madhyamika pushes us into the non-conceptual not knowing. We are using analytical thinking and reflection and logic to go into no mind, into not knowing. And what is for me such a beautiful, well, it's a trust and also a taste I have. What Lama Yeshe says in the introduction to Tantra, that not knowing is in the nature of love. Somehow, it doesn't make sense, but it is unconditioned love. And somewhere deep in my heart, I have always known that. And it doesn't make sense. And it's often in the more Geluk emptiness teachings, they don't talk so much about emptiness as also unconditioned love or something like that. So I'm really happy that that sentence is in Lama Yeshe's book. It's like my mantra, you know. But it's also, and it also fits Christian mystics because they also, when they experience this undescribable, ungraspable, not knowing, they have a sense of pure love. And it is for me like that. It's not like that I'm just rely on books.
Buddhists do always fuse wisdom and compassion together on every level.
Yeah.
Things are one.
Yeah. That's right. And then there's the term ultimate bodhicitta. You know? So there's the conventional bodhicitta, which is like, you know, all the reflections and so on and so on. But ultimate bodhicitta is that union of love and emptiness. And that love, so the pure love, it seems there's also some intelligence in it. Some creative intelligence. from where then enlightened activity arises spontaneously, without knowing, without agenda, without ideas. Activity arises. Spontaneous activity, spontaneous goodness. And I put my money on that.
And that's what would be described as infused with Rigpa.
Yes, Rigpa would be another word for what we are now. I don't know, what we are now sharing. Or Amy, you have a question?
I do. I've been having a lot of body aches, and I don't know what, and so I was, when you directed us to sound, I could be with the sound for a few moments and then an ache would come in into my awareness, and back to the sound. I'm trying to work with that, of how I'm directing it back to the sound. What is that? I know you mentioned it before when you spoke about mindfulness, but it wasn't clear to me.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a good question. In general, when we do stabilizing meditation with the primary meditation object, if it's sound or sensations or the breath or a mental image, what to do when within the peripheral awareness, something comes up, something else, yeah, which kind of competes with our attention. Like, it wants to be felt, it wants to be seen, and that creates a tension. So which then often leads to like the attempt to concentrate or like some effort, so there is like to think, like something wants to be felt. And as long as we can lovingly ignore that, which could be also a sound, for example, an unpleasant sound in the environment. You want to do your breathing meditation, and then there's an unpleasant sound, yeah, and you kind of insist on the breathing meditation. So as long as you can lovingly ignore that within peripheral awareness, it's possible still to have a stabilizing meditation, because you keep the primary meditation object in the foreground. So you let that other thing be in a relaxed way in peripheral awareness. Yeah. But then at one point, it becomes too much of a struggle. And then for me, a good advice for my own meditation is then to have the flexibility to shift from the primary meditation object to that other, to the sound, to the unpleasant sensation, and if we do a self-inquiry meditation, we could apply the same kind of questions to the unpleasant body sensation, for example. So we could ask, what is there? What is really there? What, can I go beyond the words unpleasant, body ache, pain? Can I go beyond that? What's the energy there? Yeah. So also knowing what makes us suffer is resistance. So as soon as we bring some curiosity and kindness into that being with our beam of attention, let's use that word again, or our awareness, so more we kind of lean towards it, strangely enough, our suffering reduces a bit because we struggle less, we resist less. Yeah. And then there could be at one point the question, yeah, who is aware of this body ache? Yeah, or who's the I having a body? Yeah, where's that? Is the experiencer of the body ache separate from the body ache? And different kinds of question. I like the question also in this moments. What makes it so difficult to be with this? What is it actually? Why do I refuse to feel this? And also, I'm inspired by my own experience, but I have also read a lot about that. There is something healing in because where your attention goes, your chi goes, you know, like your energy goes, the chi, the prana goes there. And that has a healing capacity. Like loving awareness has a healing capacity in itself. So I know for myself, that's not all how I would work with a wound inside of me, like either physical or emotional. But I think a big medicine which we can give to anything, to suffering in us or others, is loving witnessing. It's a medicine. So knowing that, I feel like when I have some pain, like I had some kind of serious pain for some months in my right knee when I was sitting, which was terrible. I imagined myself giving teachings and sitting on a chair. So I really love to sit in meditation posture. But knowing, and for my own experience, but also for my own readings, that this relax, just breathing into it, welcoming, being with it, bringing the light of my awareness closer to it, relaxing the resistance towards it, that is actually healing. So, and I love that, because then stabilizing meditation is not just stabilizing your attention and being able to meditate better on emptiness within that, but it's also a healing method. So I do two things at the same time. I heal myself and I train the stability of my attention. Yes, okay. Do we have another? I think our next one is in August. Or? Yeah, I canceled the one in July because I'm leading. Yeah, so the next is end of August, 26, 27. Yeah, let's do a little Lama Zopa dedication in 2 seconds. So we dedicate the merit of this session in the exact way Lama Zopa does. So we tune into that. Yeah. Boom. Yeah. Into all directions, also into our future, so that our exploration here keeps on being inspiration and protection. Maybe you have some particular people you would quickly like to invite, you know, family, friends, people who recently died. So we can shower them together. And then also for those of you where it makes sense to invite Lama Zopa back, that we are ready for being finished. Yeah, so he can finish his job with us. And then to the activities of the FPMT. So thank you very much.
You-
Thank you, Stephan.
Have a nice summer.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Stephan.